Midnight, a powerful church leader, is quiet. A revered bishop is in serious difficulty that could change how people view church leaders. How did Bishop Ellis get into major difficulty behind the scenes? Does this signal a broader problem for leaders who strayed from their duties? Stay with me, because what you'll hear may transform your view of church leaders forever. 025. A church leader's misdeeds influence more than the church. It challenges thousands of believers and raises many issues. The latest church crisis involving Bishop Charles H. Ellis III, who was formerly loved and revered nationwide, has left many wondering, was this just one guy making mistakes? Or does it indicate a much worse problem with church leaders today? In today's video, we recount Bishop Ellis' downfall, from the initial murmurs to the last public catastrophe that horrified his church members. We'll reveal the hard truths church leaders don't want you to know and show you how this scenario is worrying other churches. You'll learn what churchgoers are muttering behind closed doors. 117. How many difficulties, personal problems, and doing wrong all exploded into one gigantic explosion, which is why some think Bishop Ellis' demise is a warning to all churches. Who hid things and who spoke up will amaze you. Now things get intriguing. Get ready. I'll explain it piece by piece. 138, and you'll want to watch until the end. B. Was before the news. A confident man followed in the footsteps of a very important person for the major trouble. Bishop Charles H. Ellis III got more than a church once his father died. Has a legacy. His father, Bishop David L. Ellis Sr., founded Greater Grace Temple in Detroit, Michigan, a famous Pentecostal church. After Bishop David died in 2005, everyone looked at Charles. Could the son take it, or would the legacy fail? He first rose. Not only did Bishop Ellis preach, he built empires. Under his guidance, Greater Grace Temple became a spiritual and cultural landmark with thousands of members, many smaller congregations, and national media coverage. Ellis preached and performed at 29. He captivated believers, celebrities, politicians, and powerful individuals with his lively speaking style and slick performing presence. Celebrity funerals, local events, and award show-style worship services were held at his church. 251. Then he became head bishop of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, a 1.5 million-member church. Bishop Ellis' status as a Detroit leader had changed. He was one of the most powerful Black Pentecostals, 311, but fame and influence bring strain and scrutiny. What was once a humble church became known for its private jets, costly suits, luxury vehicles, and business-style branding. Some thought it proved God's favor. Others speculated of ego, materialism, and growing isolation from his church. Bears actual issues. 331. No one dared criticize him publicly for years. Bishop Ellis was invincible until cracks appeared. Small whispers were exchanged in church chairs and behind office doors at first. The whispers gradually grew louder, spreading like wildfire among churchgoers, changing at Greater Grace Temple. Not simply spiritual. 356. Bishop Ellis, noted for his strong sermons and positive messages, gained negative publicity. His developing obsession with expensive clothing, exotic cars, and dazzling stage acts made others uneasy. He stated it was to exhibit God's perfection, while others said it was for his ego. For 19, veteran members saw slight changes. Altar calls were more theatrical. Prayer services became performances. The church requested money more aggressively, and some felt it had become a business. No longer was church exclusively for spiritual healing. Bishop Ellis being king for 42 made it feel like a spiritual empire. Staff and assistant ministers apparently quit behind the scenes. Several reported burnout. Others referenced Ellis's shift from servant to celebrity leadership, suggesting deeper disagreements. There were charges that decisions were being made strategically for profit, politics, and public image rather than prayer. 5-6. Churchgoers were shaken by the charges. Multiple sources whispered about church money misuse. Ellis was reportedly taking private vacations and staying in five-star hotels with church funds. Psalm never fully addressed these claims. 529E insiders stated Greater Grace Temple's financial records were purposefully opaque, even among board members, but the worst blow came from within. He saw senior church pillars who worshipped under his father go. Some did it silently. Others urged Ellis to return to the old ways. Their cries were ignored. Ellis believed he was elevating the ministry. 552. In actuality, the spiritual foundation was crumbling. Still, public image was safeguarded at all costs. Flashy promos, big TV events, star front-row guests. Externally, everything was shiny. However, rot began below the pulpit. Next came the scandal that put Bishop Ellis under the national microscope, 613, not for his preaching but for what transpired on stage. The burial of Aretha Franklin thrust Bishop Charles H. Ellis III into national debate. The lavish homegoing ceremony was supposed to honor a gospel great and bring together spiritual titans and cultural luminaries, 636, but it turned into a terribly uncomfortable scandal. No one expected more than a heartwarming homage when pop sensation Ariana Grande sang, "You make me feel like a natural woman" from the pulpit. However, what followed astonished churchgoers and millions watching the live broadcast worldwide. Bishop Ellis embraced Ariana on stage at 6:57. Not a casual or respectful gesture. Cameras showed his hand uncomfortably high on her torso, pressing on her breast. Unease on. Rihanna's face showed. Ellis clung on as she nervously giggled and pulled away. 7:22. Some observers thought it was an accident. But Ariana's odd smile and Bishop Ellis' strong grip revealed a different narrative, especially after slowed-down clips went viral. Twitter exploded. Instagram filled with responses. CNN, The New York Times, and The Guardian covered the tragedy within hours, with hashtags like Protect Ariana and Church Too trending worldwide. Critics were harsh. Women's rights advocates, entertainers, and pastors criticized the bishop for inappropriate funeral church practice. Ellis' answer may have been more stunning than the act. 803. Ellis tried to laugh off the event in a backstage interview. He joked that Ariana Grande was a new Taco Bell item. That stupid, culturally incorrect comment sparked allegations of racial insensitivity and hatred of women. 824. An apology became a PR catastrophe. Ellis issued a public apology under heavy public pressure, but many thought it dishonest. He stated he would never touch a woman's breast. No idea. Perhaps I hugged her. 844. I may have crossed borders. Maybe I was too pleasant or familiar. That I may have crossed the line bothered me. A subtle dodge, not an admission. An almost apathetic dismissal of what millions had watched live on TV. External criticism wasn't the only source. According to reports, his churchgoers distanced themselves. 906. Young ladies who considered Ellis a spiritual father worried about their safety. Critics in the gospel community, even those who respected his ministry, demanded accountability, openness, and reform. The scandal moved beyond Ariana Grande. It symbolized a larger issue, 927, pulpit power. The celebration of Aretha Franklin's legacy became a public lesson on limits, consent, and the danger of spiritual authority and personal vanity. Bishop Ellis stayed in office despite indignation, coverage, and requests for sanctions. No church investigation was publicized, 948. The storm passed, at least on the surface. But damage was done. The foundation of his reputation was crumbling. A darker history was building behind those fissures, one including spiritual manipulation, maltreatment, and soon-to-be-emphasized charges. 1012. Next chapter. Even though the Ariana Grande event sparked the fuse, many in the Greater Grace Temple community saw it as the public finally seeing what they had been witnessing for years behind closed doors. More people testified in the months after the public incident, turning murmurs in church hallways and murmured concerns after service into full-blown testimonials from former church members and insiders. 1037. Women, especially, began sharing unsettling accounts of Bishop Charles H. Ellis III's leadership on social media, in anonymous interviews, and in online forums. A lengthy Facebook post by KS went viral among Detroit's gospel scene. In 1102, she described years of subtle spiritual manipulation and obscene jokes, and frequent privacy breaches, especially during private counseling. She wrote, "It starts off as spiritual counsel but evolves." 1122, you're complimented on your clothes and body, and if you leave, you're called sensitive or immature. Troubles your mind. You wonder if you're overreacting until others do too. Former church volunteers who worked with Ellis during church activities made further unsettling comments. 1142, unidentified sources said local Detroit news blogs that he gave long hugs, made inappropriate touches, made comments about women's attractiveness, and even pressured young adult members to meet with him beyond church hours. One former choir member recalled a spiritual mentorship meeting with Ellis after being invited. 1206. She says the talk began with prayer, but rapidly became personal when Ellis asked about her dating life, saving herself, and offered to cover. Felt imprisoned and manipulated. Don't refuse the bishop. Not without cost. 1225. These accounts showed a clear pattern. One or two reports could be ignored, but more people, especially women, were saying the same thing. Smoke and fire were present. Even worse, several of them said church leadership hushed or embarrassed them when they raised these concerns. Several witnesses said women were disrespected in 1247. All to God's anointed or lying or seeking attention. They think speaking up was impossible due to the power imbalance. Ellis's outward charisma didn't help. His fiery preaching continued. 1306, he was still speaking at national gospel conferences and appearing in television services, and many ardent supporters refused to believe anything unfavorable about him. Some chastised the women for coming forward, calling them bitter, jealous, or devilish tools trying to bring down a godly man. 1325. Others, especially survivors and church accountability advocates, resisted. A Detroit podcast called Sanctified But Silenced featured several former Greater Grace Temple members in a multi-part series. These frank interviews revealed names, dates, and tragic details about spiritual power being utilized for emotional, psychological, and physical manipulation. A guest best summed it up. Not meant to be anti-church. Please save it, because if people keep getting hurt and no one speaks up, we're all complicit. To further the discomfort, a leaked internal memo from a former staff member claimed that the church was aware of at least 2 formal complaints against Bishop Ellis before the Ariana Grande affair, but no formal investigation was conducted. 1417. Ladies were advised to forgive and pray. The question became unavoidable by then. How long did this continue? How many endured in silence? It goes beyond one pop star performance. The culture allegedly allowed someone to use his position and influence unchecked for decades. 1441, and while Bishop Ellis denied any inappropriate conduct beyond misjudged friendliness, the testimonies kept piling up, creating a case in public opinion. But the narrative continues. What happened next would rock Ellis's image and the church's basis. 1504. Suddenly the conversation turned sharply. Many Bishop Ellis supporters say his demise isn't just a downfall. The witch hunt is motivated by jealousy, power disputes, and a culture that wants spiritual leaders to fall. We all know important religious leaders are scrutinized. 1524. Every sermon. Today's cancel culture weaponizes every post and word. Others perceive a deeper issue. Some see this as divine accountability, a reckoning, and the lifting of the veil from charisma-based ministries, where leaders who've forgotten their platform are forcefully reminded that Christian leadership is about gifting, integrity, humility, and openness. 1551. This goes beyond Bishop Ellis. We've seen this pattern too often. Pastors leading 2 lives, congregations shattered, and the church's reputation tarnished while the world watches, enjoying the spectacle. Really, what are we seeing? ING here. The wrongful execution of a man by social media mobs, or a spiritual leader's long-awaited reckoning. Let's face 1620. Bishop Ellis's demise, whether justified or exaggerated, presents urgent considerations for every church leader. Do they practice what they preach behind closed doors? Do they serve flocks or establish brands? Most importantly, what happens when the platform outweighs the purpose? Because the church is in the spotlight, like it or not. 1645. From God, not detractors or the media. One thing this narrative tells us is this. No title can save you. Your influence can't shield you. None of your followers will cover you. Character, humility, and accountability are your only pillars. Bishop Ellis's collapse may be a warning to others before they fall.